like it used to. Colors ain't as bright as they were. Nothing's been the same since you buried what we
For me, songwriting started off just by being able to express myself, and it seemed that I could express myself more true, without reserve. I mean, I could say what I wanted to say in songs, and I could say things in songs that I didn't even know I wanted to say. And it became like an ultimate form of communication for me, and a great way to express myself. Getting into other songwriters, it is this whole beautiful craft. There's definitely, like Bob Dylan is one that I've talked about a lot of times over the years. It just seemed like he was beyond prolific. He's even recording and putting stuff out now. But he like had fire, like lightning in a bottle for so long. He's really, I really look up to him as a writer. There's lots of other ones too, like Paul Simon's a great writer. Cat Stevens a great writer.
Being a songwriter myself, getting into songwriting was kind of an accidental progression of my life. Just kind of became who I was, and I think the same thing happened to you. I think it kind of happens to all of us. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I didn't start doing music until I was probably 17, and I went to St. Louis, Marion, Illinois, and then St. Louis with some cousins for like the summer. And Michael and Tommy, my cousins, they're both into music and were at the time, and played some guitar. And I remember they showed me a few chords, and I really liked that. I grew up in high school playing sports, and it opened some sort of door for me. And then really what I was listening to, like, I remember I got the Times Are Changing, the Dylan album. And this was coming from somebody who just kind of listened to what's on the radio, and whatever my mom or dad was listening to was either like talk radio, or my mom was an aerobics instructor. So she was constantly listening to like early 90s dance tapes. So when I heard somebody like Dylan, and then it opened the door to like that kind of thing, very methodical and in depth and very deep. I wanted to do that, and I remember I went to guitar lessons a couple times ever, and I was like 17 or 18, and I took him a Dylan record, and the guy was basically like, "Why the hell would you want to play this crap?" It's something about hearing that record, and then several others down the road, it kind of all started, and my passion grew. And then playing in front of people, and then having people seem like they received what I was putting out, it really gave me the confidence to keep writing and keep doing things.
Many artists have found habits of drugs and alcohol that have sort of creeped into their lives. Understanding that you have dealt with that battle and have a better understanding than most, would you be willing to talk about the progression or evolution of yourself as an artist, undertaking very self-reflective approach in regards to that?
Yeah. I wasn't a kid roaming. I as a kid, I rode my bike. Like I said, I played sports. I was into BMX. I was into skateboarding. But I wasn't, doing crazy drugs when I was a little kid or anything like that, and came from a super bad part of town or anything like that. But as time progressed, I remember in high school just having, I don't know what it was, just depression and anxiety really hit me at that point in my life. And I still struggle with it, but I didn't know what it was at that point. And I didn't know why I was feeling that. And when I started, using pot and alcohol, it did things for me that I could never feel naturally. So I got into that way of thinking that if I can't dictate how I feel or how I'm feeling or how I want to act, and be confident and be secure with myself, there is chemicals that can do that for me. I don't know if I was born an addict or became one through the substance abuse, but there's a point where you go too far, and nothing's genuine anymore. You're like a shadow of a person. You're a shell of a person. You don't feel empathy. You don't care what's going on around you. You don't care about the people around you. All you care about is drugs. And when I get to that point, which I've been to a few times in my life, There's no good, you know, it's not like, oh, that Chili Peppers, I've heard with the Chili Peppers, they were better when they were on heroin, which is a crazy thing. And I've thought about that with my own music. Was I better with the help of drugs? Maybe sometimes. At the end of the day, though, it sabotages everything, man. But I don't know. That's a good question, man. I just know that for me, I cannot use substances anymore because I've passed that line. At some point, I passed that line, and I'll take it there every time. And ultimately, it will kill me or kill the music for sure. So
I know you knew Dave McDonald.
yeah.
One of the things I respected about him the most was his ability to delve into the sort of magic of sobriety in and of itself, its own kind of drug. It's really cool to see great musicians realize that amount of sobriety really helps them in some ways or another. And it's a very respectable thing.
I was a heroin addict years ago. An addict in general, but I used heroin in mid to late 2000s, got clean, and then was clean for several years, wrote a lot of good music. That's when I started getting known in this region when I was clean. When I first went to treatment in 2018, they were like, you're bipolar, you've got massive depression, all this stuff. And I technically was, I think, at the moment. But that first year, there wasn't a lot of writing going on. I recorded my record, The Future Looks Mighty Old-Timey, but most of that was wrote previously. And there's a couple that I added after. But it was really kind of dark times mentally, just getting everything straightened out. And it's been a process to write again. Like, this is a new time for me. The process isn't the same. I'm not really the same. And I'm kind of, I'm grateful for where I'm at, and I'm making a lot of changes in my life, and things are the best they've ever been, but I'm still hunting down, that songwriting version of me, being able to do things that I used to be able to do, but doing better and clean. It's been a battle for sure. I mean, I can see, there's been thoughts in my head like maybe I should go back out, or maybe I should go do these things because they would help me in this process. But I think just time, just being away from that stuff and working on the working on mental health, because that's a bitch, man.
Absolutely. Being that they're older songs, I listened to the album again earlier today. I felt like it had so much more of what I would consider you. It seemed like it brought more of your essence to the album. There was a lot of it was very somber. It was very humanizing and very honest. And not to say that the rest of your records aren't. I just feel like it delved into the point of like you maturing as an artist. So I'd be curious as to your thoughts on that.
It was definitely different. And our mutual friend Adam McKillop, I remember when I was like, what'd you think of the record? He's like, it hurt to listen to, dude. It was raw as shit. And when I wrote that album, when I was working on that album and putting it together, I had this plan to do some sort of like musical play, with either, performing live with recorded narration and like animation in the background, because every single one of those songs, I had a 65-ish page booklet that told the story in between. And it just got so big in my head that I kind of lost sight of the actual project. And I said, I'm just going to put these songs out there. But there was a lot more to that record initially. And it is. I wrote that during a relationship. When I met this girl, things were beautiful. Things started getting weird. I started losing trust with her. Started using again. Things were getting out of control. The relationship was exploding. She's pregnant. She secretly, ditches me, ditches the baby. Kind of fucked up. Sorry. And then I lose my mind and have a complete mental breakdown. all to just kind of gather it up at the end, like what just happened. Like that was what that record was about. And it's really just, pushing that out on a local scene, like, check this out, guys, I made a little album or whatever. It was a lot for me. So I appreciate you listening. This record, I probably got the least feedback out of everything, out of all the ones I've done, because it was different. But I really appreciate that you sense that, because yeah, it was honest, because it was basically in a poetic way my life from, start to finish of an entire story or section, a few years of my life.
In previous years, you being in the state and the condition that you were in, did it affect your ability to actively go out and gig? Do you think it affected your gigs? And do you have a hard time now being sober going into that mindset of playing live?
A lot of times I wouldn't, and at least initially, I would be careful what I would do before I had any sort of performance. And then towards the end, it got to a point where like I couldn't function without drugs. So that's about when I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to sabotage my entire reputation more than I have doing what I've been doing. So I'm bailing out. And that was a big motivator in getting clean. But I think still at this whole time I get nervous in front of people, I get nervous, and that was a way for me to kind of X out the audience and be in my head. And still to this day, I get nervous. You get up in front of a bunch of people, and especially with my songs, like we were talking about, they're so, a reflection of myself to that extent. It's like being really vulnerable in front of people, and doing that at a brewery when people are eating dinner, and like drinking beers, it was always kind of uncomfortable. But yeah, to answer your question, it got to a point where it was definitely affecting my live performance, and that was a huge motivator in getting clean, because at the end of the day, music is one of the most important things in my life.
Given the state of the world in 2020, COVID, everything else, that just absolutely bizarre nature of the year, has it affected your livelihood because you haven't been able to go actively play shows? And what are you doing to adapt to that? And are you finding outlets or hobbies or anything else beyond just music?
I initially had a bunch of shows planned. I had been kind of out of doing shows. Definitely haven't toured in a long time because I was getting help, I was in, treatment, all that stuff, working on getting my life together. And then right about the time I was like, okay, I want to hit it. This kind of popped off. So a lot of shows got canceled. And then I got a restaurant job that I'd worked last summer. And I just, lots and lots of hours, 12-hour shifts, 2 times a week, bunch of normal shifts. And so I've been slaving away, and that kind of stuff kills my spirit, because I really am a creative person. And anytime I get like a normal job, I get all dramatic, like I'm being underutilized. I got so much more in me. Yeah. But I just, like, there's not shows going on. I'm just gonna focus on working and get some gear. And that's what I've been doing. But I've been, even on my days off, I got so bored not being able to do shows that I started, I'm working on launching this company called Angry Gnome, hair and beard pomade. And that definitely was COVID inspired, because I was reading all these things like, you should start a business. Yeah, hell yeah. Dude, that's so cool. I really appreciate that. But I kept reading all these articles like, you should invest your stimulus check. You shouldn't just blow it on Amazon and all these things. So definitely, for me, to be honest, life has been better than ever, oddly, in this weird time. It kind of made me strategize, on the chessboard, do different things than I would normally do. Like with what you're doing right here with this new publication, or whatever you want to call it. It's it happened. It seems to be an online renaissance, or different ways to use social media, but using that platform to try to connect people and keep the inspiration flowing and try to keep the creativity flowing. But yeah, I see that, man. That's what I'm holding on to, at least. I don't really want to accept a world without live music and public events where people get together. Like, I don't know if I really want to live in a world like that. So everybody's kind of retooling, regrouping, and doing what we can to keep that alive.
Something I'm super interested to hear the backstory of is your painted guitar.
Well, it's a Yamaha that I've always loved the electronics on it. That's why I bought it. It's never exactly had the best acoustic tone. Just by itself, it's never really had that tone. And when Smilo and the Ghost recorded our record, I always used one of Adam McKillop's guitars. I recorded the painter on one of Adam McKillop's guitars because he's got some really nice high-end instruments. But anyway, it came about when I came out with the record, The Painter, and I was painting. It was kind of the whole thing was kind of a train wreck. I scheduled the album release party. I had been talking about it. The record was done. It sounded freaking great. I did it at GCR in Buffalo, New York, GCR Audio. I thought Justin Rose, the guy that engineered the record, did an amazing job. And then something happened with the records and they weren't going to be there on time. So I got a bunch of blank discs and I started throwing paint on them, all this stuff, burned a bunch of copies, and I was just going to hand them out for free. And then, make announcements. Sorry, the records weren't here. It kind of sucked. So during that, I was accidentally getting, this is not as an epic as a story as you were probably looking for. I started getting paint splatter all over my guitar and then kind of quit doing the CDs and started painting this guitar. And then it's got a bunch of different random artwork that a few friends started mosh podging on there. And then over the last few years, I've lightly sanded it and then done a fresh coat, something different. But I still love the guitar. It still plays great and still sounds good through a PA system. But I've embraced it, man. And I've actually done it to a couple other guitars too.
So on the note of Adam, simply because he's in the Ghost of Smilo and the Ghost, what inspired the Ghost?
Jason Wilbur, who's an amazing bass player from what part of New York? Olean, New York, I think initially. Grew up out there, and then he's in Ron Yarrows in the Vehicle. That's the first time that I had seen him play. But he's toured the world. He played with a blues guy named Bernard Allison. And so Jason is a very seasoned, real deal bass player. He's played all over the world. And I think he caught me at the Cambridge Springs Music Festival back when the hotel was still around. And he hit me up not long after and was like, "Hey, I saw your set. I really love the songwriting. I thought it was refreshing. I want to be involved." And I was like, "Dude, I've seen you with Ron Yarrows. I know your backstory a little bit. I would be tickled pink, basically, if you wanted to play some music with me." So we started playing, and then we tried out random drummers. We tried out when that band started, there was like 10 people, and it was all this madness going on. And then Adam was one of those people that we played with him for like 5 minutes, and Jay looked over at me. He's like, "This dude's in," because he didn't know who Adam was. And I was like, "I know this guy, Adam McKillop. He plays mandolin. I think he'd be awesome in this project." And we've been kind of like a little trio ever since. And on the record, Eric Brewer was on it. Abby Barrett was on it. Ted Schmeltz from the Buffalo Philharmonic was on the record. And we've played different variations of the lineup over the years, but it's always been me, Jay, and Adam McKillop. So
Adam blows my mind. He's such like a genuinely good dude. I have a special place in my heart for him. What advice would you give to new artists, younger musicians, and people breaking into the industry? Is there anything to avoid or anything to focus on specifically?
I would say do it yourself, DIY, bust your ass. Don't make it about anything but the music. I really, social media has been rough because I think it's starting to shape people and what they do. They start to do certain things because it gets likes. Oh, I want more of that. Like, people want more of that. And just my advice would be just be true to who you are right from the heart. And just keep playing, man.
So on the DIY setup, what's your home studio like? Do you find differences between, sitting down in a studio and having a specific amount of time that you have to do your shit, or do you like really, really find enjoyment in that DIY situation?
So basically, I've been building the arsenal, which I think with what I have could produce some, especially acoustic stuff. It could do some really, it could do justice to some things for sure. I have not. It's all fairly new. Like, I've only had this mic for maybe a month. I just got this interface. I got one initially and I sent it back because I didn't like it, and then I settled on this one. So it's all fairly new. I haven't sat down with a project. It's been a bunch of dicking around, really. And I just got a really nice electric amp. I got an old vintage twin reverb, electric bass. I've been basically building it. I have not put it all to the test yet, but that's what I've thought too. Like, if I went to a studio and I've got 10 songs and I want to record, there's no dicking around. It's like, I'm here to do this. And I've had a lot of success with being able to do that and do it fast and get it done. I haven't sat down in my home studio to do that yet. And I'm kind of excited to do that. I endorse this product. No, it's so new that the box is still sitting at my feet. But I like it. I like it for sure. I had the little 2-channel, the 2i4.
Yep. Which
I've used it for my podcast when I was doing the Sink Swimmer Fly podcast regularly.
On the subject of DIY recording, you really, really miss about the studio setting?
I think like Ghost has talked about doing another record soon, and we'll probably go back to GCR audio. Just because to do that project justice, I'd rather be more focused on the creation of it than the engineering aspect, Yep. I'm excited to see. I also have Ableton Live and a little MIDI pad, and I've always loved Beck and incorporating like folky tones with like beats. Gorillaz are one of my, I thought Demon Days, the Gorillaz album, is one of my favorite albums of all time. So I would like to be able to experiment and do that at home and not be, you can't really do that on the clock at a studio. Like, I want to, this isn't like 1979 and we're working on a Floyd record where we spend 6 months dicking around, messing with buttons. So it's cool to be able to do that on my own.
If you had one venue to play and you could never play another venue ever again, what venue would that be and why?
I love playing the Heron, man. I love playing the Heron. I was blessed to, I've done the Tiger Maple stage up in the woods. I've played the Songwriter Circle several years in a row. And did a little tweener on the main stage. And then I've played the dance tent a bunch of times too.
What's it like being a dad, a musician, an artist, and an entrepreneur all at the same time?
I like to stay busy, and I like to stay busy with things that I'm feeling productive doing. I think about productivity differently than I think a lot of people. When I'm at work, working in a restaurant, I feel very anti-productive. When I go to work for 12 hours to make money, I'm like, this is not where I should be, man. So when I'm working on this new pomade company, beard oils, hair pomade, beard pomade, I feel very productive, and I like the creation aspect of it. With my little boy, I like to be with him as much as humanly possible. I like to do activities with him. He's slowly getting there with the music. He's starting to mess around on the drums and, mess around on the guitars and stuff. So I'm excited to see what happens with that. But basically, man, I just like to keep moving. I like to try to outdo myself as much as possible. And I'm excited for the future.
So being on the road for 30 days at a time, do you have a best show you've ever played, or what are your greatest road memories?
I really loved. I've played some really awesome venues uh, up and down the coast. Like any shows that were specific shows. I remember Virginia. I played 3 or 4 breweries in Virginia a couple times on my way down through the Carolinas and stuff, and I absolutely love those places. And I can't even think of their names off the top of my head. The breweries all started to kind of run together, but I really loved even being alone. The aspect of I'm in a car, I've got my gear, there's no one with me because I travel alone for the most part, and listening to music, driving down the highway down south with the windows open, knowing I was on the way to a show. And if the show didn't turn out amazing or not, I felt like I was on a mission. And those are the moments.
Do you have any future plans for album releases? What's in the future of music?
So since we've talked DIY home studio, since I've gotten some of those things, the one thing that I have done, since I don't have a huge list of songs I've been wanting to record, I just have been pressing play. Really, it started with like testing out the gear with a couple things. 'Cause that's one thing I've always done from the beginning of me playing music has been improvising, making stuff up on the spot. I do it a lot with ghosts. I've done it a lot in projects where all of a sudden the band's like, "What was that third verse?" I'm like, "I don't know. I made it up." They're like, "That was cool." And I'm like, "I have no idea what the hell it was." So I've been pressing record and just kind of rambling. And 1 out of 5 times it's something that I'm like, "Oh, I'd put that out." I think it sounds good. I like what I did there. So I've been working on this improv made up on the spot record called The Profound Ramblings of Tyler Smilo. I don't have huge goals with it, but I think it's interesting, and I think that there's some quality stuff in there, and I've since learned a few of them by just listening over and over and incorporating them into my set. But beyond that, I'm talking with a few people about getting an electric project starting again. Kind of see what's happening. I got a couple friends in the Franklin, Pennsylvania area that might be traveling up starting this Wednesday. Tomorrow night we're gonna get together and see what comes. But I know that I want to keep writing, keep doing stuff, and that's just where I'm at. Yeah.
And you ain't heard the devil speak like me. And you ain't heard the devil speak like me.